Next, another panel, and this time we're going to explore how to reconcile safety and well-being with the digital world, so safety online. So let's welcome our second panel on building safe spaces online. And I'd like to welcome Noelle Martin, Samia Salam, Karen Lublinsky, Luanda Domi, and Leslie Coutterand as the moderator for this session. Please welcome them warmly. As always, thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for welcoming us. So we just had a session on building safe spaces and safe city, and now in this panel we will explore how to accelerate the reconciliation of the physical and digital worlds that ensure safety for everyone. The impact of online actions is very real, as we will talk later. So in this digital space, striking a balance between online safety and freedom of expression is crucial, especially for women and minorities. So this session will focus on creating welcoming spaces and secure digital spaces where everyone can engage meaningfully. We'll discuss strategies such as empowering users through education, implementing transparent content moderation, and adopting privacy-preserving security measures alongside effective regulation. It is essential for policymaking to consider diverse perspectives and continuously adapt safety measures to obtain this balance. So, how can we ensure that the digital world remains inclusive and safe for all? We will discuss this with our guests. So please welcome Noelle Martin in French, we would say, award-winning activist, lawyer, and researcher at UWA Law School. Samia Salam, Chief Legal Officer at Dassault Systèmes. And Karen Lublinsky, founder Lublinsky & Associates, and Luanda Domi, Gender Mainstreaming and Cyber Skills Development Manager, Global Forum on Cyber Expertise. And I'm your moderator. My name is Leslie Coutterand. I'm a journalist and activist and also director, and I am very happy to have this conversation with these wonderful guests. So to start the conversation, I would love to talk to Karen first and ask her what inspired her as a lawyer to specialize in cyberbullying and harassment of women. And also additionally, maybe you could briefly list and define the key threats related to cybersecurity so we know exactly what we're talking about today.
Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you so much, Leslie and the Women's Forum, for having me today. I'm very proud to be with all of you today and to talk about this subject, very important. My name is Karen Lublinsky, and I have been a criminal defense lawyer for 6 years. Since the very beginning of my career, I have always been very invested in the issue of sexual violence and more generally, violence against women, women's rights, which is actually what brings us together here today. During the COVID pandemic, like many of us, I noticed an explosion in both cyber stalking and domestic violence. Together with a few fellow lawyers, I decided to set up a free 24/7 days networking platform to provide legal advice and help to victims. At that time, children, teenagers, and adults were all behind their computer, behind their screens, in their home, which considerably increased online hate. There is something very unique about cyber violence. Everything happens instantly. And above all, the audience is so vast that it can have dramatic consequences for victims. For some people, there are no limits, no boundaries on internet, as if it were a lawless zone. But at this time and today, there is so much to be done to improve a judicial handling of these offenses. And I'm talking cyber violence, but also harassment. Very quickly, I understood that we could do more in the fight against cyberbullying and that victims needed to know their rights. And the internet, as it can be a fantastic tool, and it's also the source of a new form of violence and risks. Cybercrime includes numerous offenses that affect individuals directly, but also our data. The main danger of internet include cyberbullying, non-consensual distribution of intimate image, deepfake, hacking, cyber addiction, but also, and it's important on our times, disinformation or fake news, which are very, very dangerous for our society.
Thank you. Samia, with new technologies often being exploited for harmful purposes, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in safeguarding against cyber threats?
So thank you so much for having me as well. I'm very happy to be part of this conversation. So as a corporation, the way we look at cyber threat is, first of all, we need to understand it's not just a random threat. Cybersecurity is an industry. It's a very well-organized industry. It is structured as such. It has a business model. It has a hierarchy, different skills, etc. So we're not facing some, random threat actor in their basement. It's really something that is organized and targeting individuals and big corporations. The second thing is that the challenge is AI, of course, is also impacting cybersecurity, just like it is impacting everything else. So it has a multiplying effect on the types, the volume of attacks, but also the sophistication of those attacks. And the third aspect is that you can do everything to protect, your company, your people, your clients, your entire ecosystem. But it is very easy to indirectly reach someone also because it's a matter of who has your data. So it's not just about protecting yourself, but checking that whoever has your data is also putting in place some security measures. And the last point, the last challenge for me is it's a human factor. So a lot of cyber threats, although, there's a rise of AI and sophistication, etc., most of them are very simple, in fact, and rely on someone just making a mistake, clicking on the wrong link. And so that's a challenge, but that's also part of the answer, because if you educate people about those threats, then you have a better chance of fighting it.
Thank you. I would like to focus a little bit more on another kind of threat when it becomes very personal and intimate. So, Noelle, as a young woman, you had to fight against a non-consensual use of images with no effective policies in place to protect you. So today you research the use and abuse of technologies of human replication, from deep fakes to generative AI to immersive VR tech, drawing on your experience as a survivor of technology-facilitated abuse. So the question is, how do you overcome this kind of experience, firstly, and where did you find the strength?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here. So I just wanted to start off by briefly giving a bit of a summary of my experiences, and then a bit of a landscape of the issue of deepfakes and non-consensual synthetic intimate imagery. So for over a decade, I've had anonymous perpetrators take images of me from social media and doctor them or manipulate them into fake intimate images and post that all over the internet alongside very horrific commentary about me. And this abuse has escalated over time in terms of how many images, how graphic they were. And as we know, when women speak out about sexual abuse, the abuse exacerbates. So I spoke out and my story went all over the world, and the perpetrators continue to target me, and they've also created fake deep fakes of me, and now I essentially just have to navigate life with all of this content out on the internet, but I believe I've reclaimed my name. I speak out about it, fight for justice, and this is the issue that we're dealing with today. So since 2017, there have been the world's biggest deepfake abuse sites have amassed billions of views. Now we're dealing with nudify apps that have emerged that allow anyone to upload an image of a clothed woman, and it can churn out nude images of those women with ease. We're also dealing with the fact that search engines such as Google direct traffic to these sites. If you Google deepfake porn today, the first search result is the world's biggest deepfake abuse site, and that's still on Google, and it's been on for a very long time. So Google directs traffic to these sites. Payment processors such as Visa and MasterCard have facilitated the trading of this material. Social media sites have enabled this abuse by allowing people to promote and advertise this, and also refer people onto these sites. So this is the kind of scale that we're dealing with now. But part of my research is also looking at what the future threats are for this issue. So if we think that we're dealing with the appropriation of people's identities and bodies and names and likenesses in like a two-dimensional form today, and all the harms that come with that, we're also facing the next frontier, which is like the three-dimensional replication of people in hyper-realistic form. So Meta, in particular, is working on three-dimensional human avatars that they want to deploy for their virtual reality, augmented reality applications. And so they're literally developing technologies to replicate people down to their pores, down to their hair strands, down to their body movements, down to their idiosyncrasies. So if we're dealing with the consequences of how easy it is and how hyper-realistic it is to appropriate someone doing or saying something in two-dimensional form, we can only imagine what the implications are in three dimensions. So that's the research I'm dealing with.
Thank you. This is worrying. And Karen, I have a question following this. How can we reinforce regulations, knowing that these cybercrimes often happens on the other side of the world? And also from a justice perspective, like what is the platform's responsibility or the GAFAM, etc.?
Yes, online, some offenses are particularly complex. And on so many levels, so many different levels. Complex in terms of first identifying the authors. And you were talking about it. Obviously, the author acts under sometimes a pseudonym or an anonymous name. So it's very complicated, and it does not always allow for tracking back to their true identity. Complex in a term of just how to stop there. How to stop them. Sometimes, even when a complaint has been filed, the investigation can take months. Sometimes it can take years. And justice is slow and lacks resource, and it allowing the author to continue committing these offenses. Also, it is complex in terms of consequences for victims. Obviously, the longer the offense lasts, the more devastating the consequences are going to be for victims. Sometimes, even when a piece of content disappears from social media, it has already been published, screenshot, or circulated in some groups, WhatsApp, Snapchat, or I can give you lots of examples. And the last, but not the least, complex in terms of evidence. It is sometimes complicated to have evidence for a cyber offense. The comment, the post, the picture can be deleted just after the publication. So how victims can provide evidence to justice? It is a big question, and we have to help them to provide those evidence. Platforms, of course, Leslie, have an essential role to play in protecting individuals from online harassment. This company must take their platform a healthy environment to protect against online hate. And by failing to act, they are allowing these offenses every day to exist and develop. As you know, digital platforms are required by law to implement effective moderation system to detect and remove illegal content. They also have to collaborate with justice system. Moderating content on social network is a national priority, and all platforms have to put lots of money in it, because that's the issue. There are currently two types of problems. First of all, by the time moderation takes place, it's usually too late, and the damage may already have done. And second of all, in many cases, there is no moderation at all. Platforms sometimes do not moderate, and it is therefore necessary to invest significant resources in moderation by increasing the number of moderators. How is it possible? For a platform, it takes 2 hours to remove child pornography content. How is it possible? And in this regard, there is a last thing I want to say. There is an additional aspect that seems very important. It's the training of those moderators. How can we ensure that these people are all trained in the same way that we are expected it, and that they have the same level of awareness of the issue of racism, sexism, homophobic, and discrimination in general? And in a world where social media have become the primary means of communication and expression, the question of their regulation is pressing. How can we reconcile freedom of speech with the need to protect individuals from abuses?
So I'm going to ask a question to Samia and Luanda, and then we'll go back to freedom of speech later with Noelle. Samia, what role should tech company play in setting and enforcing transparent policy? How is it really possible, and to make it effective?
So there's one obvious answer to that, which is what Coutterand just talked about. If you're a tech company providing a platform, there has to be some accountability, there are regulations on moderation, etc. And I believe that if those platform providers do not comply with those rules, at some point they will be held accountable for the content, so they probably should be mindful of that. But even if you're not a platform provider, if you're just an actor in the online space, I think people look at corporations as having some responsibility on the topic, because they're viewed as having the power to either make the rules or at least influence them, and they are chronically more powerful than individuals. So if a large corporation acts on a matter like that, then of course the number of people that you protect is exponential. So how do companies do that? You create a culture that fosters diversity and inclusion, and I know that's just words, but the way to do it is extremely important. The way to do it is to do 3 things. One is to create the culture. The second one is to share the values, and the third one is to act on them. So if you want to create the culture, you know, Simon Sinek used to say in his famous TED Talk, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I think now we're at a point where people may buy who you are, so being able to explain who you are, how you treat people, how you treat your employees, your customers, your ecosystem in general, might be the reason that you're chosen over one of your competitors. So it's extremely important to be clear on how you consider diversity and inclusion. The second aspect is sharing those values. That means that they need to be part of your equity as a company. It cannot just be a sales pitch. And it needs to be embedded in the objectives of people, not just something that you post on a website on a wall, and you need to train people on that. So at Dassault Systèmes, for example, diversity and inclusion are part of our leadership objectives that are part of our annual evaluation, and not just for management, it's for everyone in the company. And also it's part, if you think about it's part of your sustainability commitments. So it's also part of the criteria on which variable compensation is based, or share plans is based. So it's essential that you commit people to those values. External, you talked about transparency. It's very important that people know that. So usually it's embedded in the code of conduct of companies, and that's one way to show who you are, and that holds you to the standards that you publish on the website, so it's visible from the outside. And as far as acting on the values go, I think you have to be able to enforce the values, which means sanctions if people do not comply. It also means that people have to have a way to report, and they need to be able to report internally if there's an abuse in a safe environment, in a secure and confidential way. They need to see that some sanctions can be decided, and there needs to be some transparency on those sanctions so people know exactly what behavior is acceptable, what behavior is not, and they see that the company actually pursues those types of behavior.
Thank you. Luanda, so you focus on cyber skills development a lot in your work. How can we better equip women and minorities with these skills that they need to navigate and thrive in digital environments, or at least, if not thrive, at least be safe?
Thank you, Leslie. In order to thrive, or I think maybe navigate the digital environment today, I think I'm going to just echo several things that my colleagues already said here and in the previous panel, which I think 3 key strategies would be education, access, and empowerment. Education, it's very important that digital trainings or education overall, it's very comprehensive, that goes beyond basic digital skills. So, like we saw the issues here today, cybersecurity awareness, how to detect deepfake, how to do threat detection, for example, or privacy protection. These are key skills that not just people in the cybersecurity ecosystem should have, but everyone, especially women, minorities, and vulnerable groups, because as we saw, I think throughout the conference, the past 2 days, they are more vulnerable towards all types of threats, and increasingly so in the virtual world. Second to that, it's access. Access for equitable resources, I have to emphasize. So we have to provide, and I'm referring again to the previous panel, access to, for example, women and vulnerable groups, educational programs. One of the things that he mentioned in the previous panel is just not being able to get to school and back. So there are means to do that, and online, virtually, and I think this can be not just for cybersecurity awareness, but different types of programming, and it just takes willingness from the ecosystems serving. Well, they're supposed to serve us, right?
And as said before, fundings.
Exactly. And the very last one, it's empowerment. And the empowerment comes from representation. Women and minorities need to be in career pathways, in given opportunities for leadership roles. That's the only way that you can move things forward if you are part of the decision-making process.
Thank you. I would like to go back on the experience point of view. There's 2 questions I want to ask you, Noelle. The first one is, why this was happening to you? Was it hard to have your voice heard, especially as a woman and as a minority? And then the second one is, I want to go back on the freedom of speech, because I think you have a few perspectives on that. They're very insightful and need to be presented to this audience today.
Yeah, thank you. So on the first question about the difficulties speaking out about this as a woman and as a woman of colour. I think when I reflect on all of the years that I've been fighting this, literally around the world, the abuse part was the easiest part, and that's the truth. I think the hardest part was speaking out publicly and facing the court of public opinion, but it's also fighting to be heard at tables and at policy making rooms. And I think particularly you learn very quickly about the politics of listening, of the politics of victimhood, of who you have to be and who you have to look like in order for people to feel sympathy or empathy for you, how you must talk, how you must dress. You learn very quickly about all of these requirements. You learn very quickly about the racial issues with ideal victimhood and perfect victimhood. And if you don't conform to certain molds, people are less inclined to listen to you. Some of the other difficulties navigating this is to get victims and survivors at the tables where decisions are being made about us and for us. It's quite shocking that, especially in the online safety space, policymakers are sitting, at these tables, making decisions at arm's length, not actually hearing or consulting with the very people that are affected by this. So it's been very, very difficult to navigate just speaking out and being heard and being listened to, and to fight for other people who are in similar positions to be listened to. And so the second part about freedom of speech and the interplay with freedom of speech and online safety, a very quick point on that, which is, I think we often hear in these discussions, especially about deepfakes, we hear about discussions of freedom of speech and how, if we regulate it too much or if we criminalise it, that might impact people's ability to express themselves, which I think in these kinds of discussions, we really just need to be clear on what is and what is not freedom of speech. If you are creating fake intimate content of people and posting that online, that is not an issue that enlivens freedom of speech whatsoever. You're depriving people of their autonomy, their agency, their self-determination, their ability to make a living, and you're treating women as objects of sexual gratification. So there are no free speech implications when it comes specifically to the appropriation of women's bodies in a sexual way. You might have freedom of speech issues raised when it comes to potentially political deepfakes, although I think it really is not appropriate for people to be appropriating politicians. I think that's really problematic when it comes to mis and disinformation, but that definitely raises different issues when it comes to political context. But in this kind of context, I don't believe there's any free speech implications, and so I think we have to be very clear on what is and what is not free speech or not.
Thank you. I wanted to tap into the educational part very quickly before we wrap up with another questions for everyone. In terms of victims, it can be on every level of cyber criminality. A lot of victims don't know how to navigate the justice system. Can we talk about it, Karen? What needs to be done to help victims on every level?
Yeah. In recent years, I must say that there have been some efforts in France, police officers are much better trained regarding these offenses, and a specialized prosecutor office have been created for hate online, but it's not enough, because the judicial system can be quite slow, which can be, as we already said, devastating for a victim. Except in certain cases, I believe that cyberbullying, cybercriminality, when it touches women, like you said, and sexuality, are not always taken seriously by the authority. And the lack of resource does not help anybody. But sometimes, I must say that there is a few victories. Last year, I had the honor of assisting a man who was a victim of an extremely violent cyber bullying. and the author was placed in pre-trial detention and had to serve a 12-month detention without no suspended aménagement. And upon release, he was subject to a complete ban of using social media for 3 years, which was something for victims. But it is today essential to train all judges in new technology and all police officers in new technology, because sometimes they even don't know what is a deep fake. Like you're going to a police station, you want to file a complaint, and they say, what is deep fake? What is like revenge porn, even if we don't like this term? And we have to train everyone, and the safety has to be the same, the expertise has to be the same all over the country, and of course, all over the world.
Thank you. And also, I assume a big work on education, on the steps that victims can take. Luanda, to conclude this panel, what can we do, each one of us today, to act at our level to create safe spaces for all?
So I come from the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, which there I lead a network of networks, which is called Women in Cyber Capacity Building Network. It is a place where it has member countries, tech communities, academia, etc. So we really bring a multi-stakeholder approach to the discussions that we're having here today, among other things like critical infrastructure and cyber, and how this actually correlates, individual threats to even national security threats, and so on. In that end, I think what I would say, a call for action on behalf of this community, is to support, I think, organizations like this and networks like this, including Women Forum, because they are serving as a bridge to gaps that are existing in the ecosystems, whether that is in attracting women, vulnerable groups in ICT and cybersecurity professions, or upskilling, or reskilling, or victim support, etc., etc. For instance, in our organization, we have partners from all over the world. For example, we have, I have to mention them because they're incredible, Cyber Safe Foundation, which provides trainings in 27 countries in Africa, cyber girls, and the young girls that actually graduate and the ones that are reskilled to this career get employed, and their salary goes 200 to 400% increase. And then we have, for example, Women in Cyber Foundation Europe that does from training to employment to upskilling to leadership, and then Women in Cyber Security Middle East. So what I'm trying to say is the call for action here, it would really be to support organizations like this, search what you find more interesting, whether to be part of this programming or to actually finance this programming, because as we heard in the morning, there is a lot of diversity programs in corporation working internally, but if we actually look at in the global level, these organizations are struggling in keeping their programs running, especially, for example, Cyber Safe Foundation in Africa. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a few seconds for the last words, Samia and Noelle, and then Karen will just have a few more words to end this panel. What would be your call of action, Samia, today at an individual level, if we had to leave with one thing, in a few seconds?
Okay, so if I have one word, it would probably be education as well. Cyberspace has its challenges. It's simultaneous by nature, international, easy to hide, etc. So we know the challenges. And just like any form of progress, it will require education for people to know how to use it. So yes, corporations can help, but I think it's really going to be about educating people on caring about each other. And I believe sorority will be what saves the world.
Thank you. Noelle?
So just to not repeat what's already said, I think one of the things I would love to relay is that we know that we've got billions of people viewing these deepfake abuse sites, and I would urge people, I know people do look at them just out of curiosity, just to see what they're like, how realistic they are. Please don't go and search that, because you're helping to facilitate the abuse of this, of women. So if people are in schools or you are curious, please don't.
Thank you. And Karen?
Yes, thank you, Leslie. Just a last word. Creating safe online spaces is essential for fostering, of course, inclusivity, respect, and positivity in digital communities. And each of us, we can do meaningful action every day to promote safety online. We can report all hate content. We can help each other by not tolerate any bullying, but most of all, and above all, we must educate, of course. We must educate about the risk of internet, about what you can or cannot say. Educate especially our children about the consequences of its use, about what they may find on social media to allow them to be protected. Our sons, our daughters deserve to grow up in a safer online space, and we must protect them from violent and hateful content. And in this disastrous and immensely sad time where so many people are suffering all around the world, education in all areas will save us and help us together towards reconciliation. And I thank the Women's Forum for choosing this team, which is full of hope for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for our guests and our speakers to talk today. Thank you. Have a good day.
Many thanks, Leslie, for your moderation, and many thanks to all our panelists indeed.